fun draft to watch, while for OMG, it is rock solid all the way. New's going to be piloting the Malphite in the top lane. So run me through OMG first, because there is a lot of engage too on this red side.
Yeah, even though OMG does have a lot of engage, right? We have the Malphite, Olaf wants to run in, Kai'Sa has the ability to jump in, might even go something like a Gale Force potentially. I still think they're the team that wants to play more at a range. They are a bit squishier in most of their roles, right? Zoe, Morgana want to play a bit further back, especially when you're up against FPX's comp. Alistar, Samira, Kennen, Yone, like all of these champions thrive on going in. If Yone can find a great ult and get onto something of the likes of a Zoe, she's going to be bursted out instantly. So for me, the formation from OMG is like, you know, they need the Malphite standing in front. They want to play a bit more from a distance, look for a bit more of a pick style composition, to where actually Stake had some pretty decent results with RNG as well. So
yeah, he really did. I'm hoping that as we get into this game number 1, FPX show us what they've got. We've got the Talia in the jungle, something you prepared me for expectation-wise, but the all-in FPX going forward and setting up this engage is something that we're going to be excited to watch. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Demacia Cup, the English broadcast brought to you by the Score Esports. This is going to be a banger as we head into our very first game of FPX versus OMG. And FPX, if you haven't seen, if you haven't heard, running 4 out of their 5 of what we expect to be the full roster. Of course, Nuguri is in Shanghai at the moment. As we get a look at the Demacia Championship Cup, this is going to be all you've been waiting for. An OMG, a roster that we are expecting to see in the LPL. And a roster that you talked about, you know, with Olaf skirmishing and how we're going to see this 2v2 through mid and maybe see an early invade from OMG as well.
And I think their level 1's really strong, right? You have the Morgana binding coming out if you need that. Alistar, very weak champion level 1. Olaf, one of the strongest level 1 champions in the game. So either just getting this vision and information down or even just full-on stealing a camp, setting Talia behind. We talked about this meta is all about enabling your jungler.
It is. An underdog comes through. Also enabling vision here for the bottom side of the map. Is LWX getting the poke over the wall? OMG managed to clear out vision as it's a trouble level start. We're getting it all in engage. Did you miss the LPL? Well, with the smite down, TN shows you that level 2 can be achieved. And yes, the answer is from the audience, as OMG get nothing.
I'd say the most unfortunate thing is if you look at your minimap, Nu was hovering the whole time, just kind of sitting around mid lane.
Yeah.
It seemed like he was trying to absorb a bit of XP, but you're dedicating 5 men down towards the bot side of the map. You end up losing the smite fight. You waste a bunch of time. Kennen going to be able to push this advantage even further. And I feel like FPX are feeling pretty good.
Remember, it's all about getting that smite down as well. So you're starting down with a red buff. It's a clear for Talia. Mentioning before, Lyric, how fast this new Talia clears out. It is the phase rush here for game 1 of Tien, and he's already level 2. He's 1 camp up over the Olaf, and is heading towards Wolves and Blue towards the top side.
Yeah, and I do like the phase rush because this matchup, Talia versus Olaf, is kind of, if you face check into Olaf at any point in Talia, you're just dead. So having that little bit of movement speed to try and, you know, get away from him, meet up closer with one of your laners and look for something like a 2v2 or a skirmish where you don't just get outright solo killed is nice.
Really nice. A nice trade in the bottom lane, meanwhile, as well. Crisp just kind of face tanks as Cold and Eric hit 2 first and get the damage down. Meanwhile,
fair, that's exactly what they need to do as well, right? You pick the Morgana, you need to look to dominate lane, you need to look to start getting advantages, hitting some plates, and really getting this river control that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, going for the scuttle. A lot of burst damage with Morgana and the 5-hit Kai'Sa proc. So Eric's going to pick this one up. Bit of gold injection as well as the wave was pushing up at the same time. Let's note where Tien is with the level advantage. He's heading through mid right now. Double buffs available. And looking to wreak some havoc. Tien needs a seismic shove onto Wooming and throwing a couple of stones in the wreck of that havoc. It sends out stone throw once again, flashes away. This is getting messy. As Doomby heads forward onto Cold, and Cold just kind of walks into him. You've given first blood over to a Yone as Arky has to flash as well. And FPX are probably loving this, thinking you fell right into our trap.
Yeah, and I don't feel like this should have worked like this at all. We saw Tien comes into mid lane, Yone not really having any hard CC to set up all of her damage and burst, so he quickly has to flash out of there. Like you said, though, Cold just kind of straight up chilling, walks forward, says hello to Doomby. Doomby picks up that first kill, and FPX so far just taking advantage of OMG's mistakes.
And it's Samira time in the bottom lane, meanwhile. LWX maxes to S, but of course you're only level 4 at this point. Managed to clear out the wave and get another trade back with Eric. This means good back timing here for the Samira in the bottom lane as well. But FPX with a small gold lead to start this game off, purely because Doomy gets that first blood. And now I'll be curious to see what happens with the Yone mid, who's yet to back himself.
Yeah, and, going back to... Actually, we're going to get a replay. Goes in, has the Q knock up. Talia not able to land any of the CC like we said. Yone not having any hard CC to set up the Talia combo. Cole just walking a bit too far forward. Yone able to snap back. Olaf, once again, a bit overextended as well, has to flash away. And just nice win for FPX.
And keeps falling behind, right? You know, the jungle v jungle matchup right now, Tien is still really pacing ahead. Has that blasting wand and is up by about 10 CS. Aki getting the push in the bottom lane, while the response from Tien is once again matching him. The bottom side scuttle's going to be spawning soon, and the priority seems to be for the bottom lane of FPX.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I expected us to maybe see a bit more play of FPX through mid towards top side. You don't really want to see Tien just straight up go top since you are double AP and you're running into a Malphite who can very easily itemize magic resist. But still, we saw the early laning power out of Cold and Eric early on, so I thought Aki would play more around the spot side and we might see a split map situation. But as I'm talking about it, Hysterics, it's happening.
Hey, you know what? They're like, hey, Xiaolao, who you want to get the experience? Yone ultis through, and that's a good flash. New manages to get out, and he's already used the ulti himself. So Tien's waiting for that seismic shove, but instead FPX will get priority in the top lane and just set up for the turret for their most fed member in Doombit.
Yeah, and just getting some plate gold down feels really good, and it's really nice to see FPX putting so many resources into Doombit. Also nice to see him roaming around the map. Obviously, we had a lot of question marks for FPX coming in because they fell out round 1 in playoffs and lost 2-3 to IG in the regional finals. So not a good showing that we would expect from FPX.
We're not done there. A couple of plates here for Doombit. But yeah, really strong start for FPX at the very least. Now, Lyric, we're going to be talking a lot about new items, and I'm going to be leaning on you a lot. You are a wizard when it comes to this game. We've got our first item here for the Kennen. We've got the replacement to the Hextech Revolver, and expected to see the Protobelt as the first item. Excuse me, the Rocket Belt as the first item. Yes.
And again, just a really good item, synergized with Kennen well. Obviously, the big change to Rocket Belt was got the movement speed added on after you do the dash. You get movement speed, I think, for 3 seconds towards enemy champions. So great for champions like Kennen that do want to get into the thick of things. So Xiaolao doing a good job so far, just kind of farming up. Not really outright winning his lane, but Malphite, really durable champion, does fine in a lot of these early trades. I feel like the most interesting thing is I want to see where, especially Kaisa will go. We've mostly been seeing Kraken Slayer into Runon's Hurricane, but there is an option a lot of people do like to go Gale Force. Gale Force, of course, gives you a bit less attack speed, a bit less AD, but pretty much is paying for an extra flash. Feels quite good in coordinated play.
Yeah, it really does. And I think at this point we'll see, because Noonquiver's sitting there for the time being. Triple longsword for LWX. And this lane has been back and forth, but not too much action within. While I'm looking across the board, I see a Noonquiver now picked up for Doombit, who already had Berserker Greaves, so we've got a lot of attack speed here out of the Yone. And remember, we're not really seeing the Guinsoo's Rage Blade anymore, so we'll see what that first item is in the transition. Second to third item for the Yone. Because, you know, we didn't really see any in Challenger's career. This is one of the first. But again, another powerful pick in solo queue.
Over the past month, it has mostly been that Immortal Shield Bow, and you're playing this very sustain-heavy style, right? Getting into the thick of things. Doesn't matter too much if you get low. But another champion we've seen a lot of players recently pivoting towards, even buying Gale Force on.
There's Killer Instinct in the bottom lane. Wild Rush is still available for LWX. He's trying to stack up to S tier. Inferno trigger's there and he pops it immediately, but is exhausted down. That exhaust changes everything as he flashes away, and Eric comes on up. The Black Shield timing perfect, but Crisp able to trade back. Really nice from OMG's bottom lane, while it is a fate sealed by Doombit, who runs on into his death. Tien to salvage the situation, but Aki and Wooming are hot on his trail. With a Paddle Star, a Trouble Bubble, they can find this kill. OMG hungry for blood, but Tien dodges away. The undertow not enough. Tien on the wrong side of the map, but OMG gonna let him go.
Yeah, just kind of shenanigans all over. It does seem like OMG were the slight victors in the end. Aki should be able to steal away this camp as well, but we saw it started in the bot lane. We talked about the interaction that Morgana would have against the Alistar, being able to deny some of that CC. Both AD carries do end up going down, and then Dwinby looking for a bit of action on top side. They do end up dying out to Aki and Zoe.
It was nice from Dwinby. They wanted to make sure this Herald was theirs, and then they wanted to fight over it.
Yeah, and we saw they try to deny it like you say. He pops the E, goes in a bit too far, goes over the wall. Nice ultimate, but it kind of has to flash out, so I'm wrong. That actually wasn't a nice ultimate. And now Tien left in the 1v2 situation. Does manage to get away in the end, though.
It was definitely an ambitious play as we're continuing forward. New doesn't have flash, he doesn't have an ultimate, and Tien, Xiao Hu, and Dwinby are hot on his trail. Gets the knock up through Q, and Tien's going to get the kill. Nicely done from FPX to keep the momentum high and set themselves up for Rift Herald and potentially first Turret Blood in the top lane.
Yeah, this is going to give them a lane to play through, like a point of pressure on the map for the rest of the game. So they're very easily going to be able to push in this lane and just start rotating the cannon around the map. I'd expect us maybe to see a pseudo 1-3-1 at some point in this game. You know, it's not the AD cannon, so he doesn't want to just hard sit in the side lane. They still do want a team fight, but they can at least get pressure through 3 lanes, collapse on 1, and start to open up the map that way.
Yeah, you know, when he picked up that Hextech alternator, you know, we expected that, especially with the blasting one coming through. So that Proto Belt should be well and truly on its way, with Boots already picked up as well, expecting Tier 2 to come through. You and I were talking a lot about the Tier 2 Boots being seen a lot more earlier, a lot more often, being a lot more common.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like nothing necessarily got buffed, but we have been seeing a lot of early Tier 2 Boots, which usually makes sense in things like a melee versus range matchup, when you're facing double AP, so if you're a Malphite in this situation, things along those lines, but it just seems like, especially with a lot of items getting a bit of a price bump with their changes, it's just an efficient buy very early on into the game.
So expect maybe some of those Magic Pen shoes coming forward, especially if you're someone like Tien who has Luden's Echo. But for OMG, they've had the objective game pretty even with FPX through this first game of Demacia Cup. We're seeing our second dragon go down, and it is Aki who starts this one and gives out the mountain towards OMG with, as I move my fat face, actually an Ocean Soul coming forward this game. So a very useful dragon for a team like OMG.
Both sides going to want that immensely, and especially when we've talked about a lot of the sustain coming out on Summoner's Rift these days. Of course, Olaf getting towards that Gold Drinker, Yone having the Immortal Shield that we talked about.
He's Fate Sealed, Lyric. You know what that means? It means Dwinby's going to take another turret shot, and that's pretty much it. He felt it, but Tien didn't want to commit.
Yeah, the thing I love about how Dwinby's been playing this game, though, right? It's always been right up to the edge. He's constantly looking for these trades, constantly pushing to see how much more he can get. And that really feels like what a tournament like Demacia is meant for.
Yeah, you know, a test, a bit of a limit search as well. As we bring you back to the game, first items are actually being completed across the board, so I want to talk about this a little bit more. The Immortal Shield Bow that you smartly mentioned has been picked up from Dwinby, and he's really ahead of the curve. 10 CS over his lane opponent in Wooming, but more importantly, he has those couple of kills. He has the Berserker Greaves, those Tier 2s that we were also mentioning. Now it's about the next couple of bits of build path and how strong Dwinby will get as this game goes on.
Yeah, and again, just a great item overall. Of course, with each legendary, you're getting the 5 AD and 50 HP. When you're low, you get a shield for 3 seconds, as well as a lifesteal for 8. And as a champion who, again, is constantly looking to go and take these aggressive fights like we're doing, it just feels like the perfect item. It just goes so well with Yone's kit, where his crit chance is doubled and deals 80% damage. So just the perfect item for Yone overall.
It gives him absolutely everything. Talia, I mentioned with the Luden's Echo being the first pick up here with the mythic item. The Proto Belt's no surprise to anyone for the Cannon. Rocket Belt. It'll take a while to get into that. Mortal Shield Bow actually picked up for Samira as well. So LWX is piloting that one, and we've got 4 pretty strong items in lieu of the next Herald coming up in about under a minute. The next Dragon in about 3 minutes as well. So I feel like the next skirmish is going to be a big one around one of these neutral objectives.
And we knew when we saw both of these compositions, that's what it would be all about, right? We talked about, hey, FPX's comp definitely does well at running forward. They do have some abilities to try and find a numbers advantage, right? The Talia ultimate, if they do want to just pick someone off. They have been just using their mid lane priority naturally to go for those 3v1s top side, but at the end of the day, they feel fine going in when you have a Samira and an Alistar. On the side of OMG, when you draft a Malphite, when you draft a Kai'Sa, these are two champions that thrive in that straight-up 5v5. And when we talk about 5v5s, all about dragons.
Yeah, the dragons that have been stacked up by OMG. But 2k gold lead from FPX, and we're just farming the game right now with Herald spawning very, very shortly. But OMG are moving up for this one. Eric's actually backed away, picked up Gale Force and Executioners, and they're heading towards the big purple thing.
Yeah, they are heading towards the Rift Herald. We see Sleepy Trouble Bubble.
It does land onto Doomby. He starts tanking up Herald for a little bit. How coordinated is this? Good Rift Wall, but you know what? Aki just comes in and takes it. Thanks, flashes away, and OMG are out. Good Dark Binding, and goodbye FPX.
Yeah, that was just kind of well played. They're able to take the Herald. They disengage easily. It's going to lead to a mid-tower, and they're going to even out the gold score when they're the ones sitting on 2 Drakes. OMG in a great position.
And they're going to get a second charge through Herald mid as well. 4 members sticking around. New is off to the side, just waiting for that cannon to show himself. So Herald gets the charge through the mid lane on the inner turret, puts it to half, and OMG just back away. Good time to go back to farming and set up for this next dragon that's coming up in a minute. By then as well, you'd expect that Wooming should have that first item. Now, Lyric, again, something else you and I have been talking about is Liandry's versus Luden's Echo on the Zoe. And most of the time, you know where our answer lies.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Luden's is the overall better item. Again, just gives you more outright burst, which is a lot more about what Zoe does. You can pick up Liandry's in certain circumstances against, again, tankier team compositions where the burn might deal a bit better or in certain play patterns. But this game especially, I expect it to be the Ludens because you look at FPX's team comp, it is very squishy. And even though we talked about, hey, you have a lot of champions that want to go in, Kennen, Yone, Samira, Alistar, you're in a really awkward position when you don't really have anyone fit to lead the charge. Sure, you have one tank champion, but you all go in, Malphite throws out that ultimate, very easy for your whole team to get bursted out.
Important to give the audience context there. Challenger's career, of course, which is what we've been watching quite a lot of. There have been a lot of Liandry users, so context there is cold. Black Shield's just in time for the headbutt pulverize, but takes a lot of damage here. As Tien throws some stones over the wall, and OMG are forced to be a bit more defensive than they would have liked in this river. Dragon has now spawned an FPX and moving in, as there's mid-wave to clear for Doomby, so he wants to do that and then reset, move back into contestant range.
Yeah, and it was good play by Tien, hits all of his Q, but we see Xiaolahu looking for that angle, and again, he has the Rocket Belt. If he can find a nice flank angle, get on top of the Zoe and the Kai'Sa, it will just be a one fight for the side of FPX.
But at the very least, he has Flash too, so if he needs to close the gap, he can. Talia's Weaver Wall doesn't shut out Aki again. He walks in, he steals it again. Stop giving him these objectives as we engage from you. Was solid as hell, but Xiaolahu with a 5-man ulti, and it's Inferno trigger time. It's about time to talk about Devil May Cry as well, until Eric presses Q. Doomby in with the Q himself, and at level 11 wants to take down Wooming, but the Blast Cone brings him over into his AD carry. They can't kill Doomby yet, and onto Cold with a mortal shield bow. He almost comes back to life, but Wooming finishes off the kill, and OMG really strike at the heart of FPX.
There's just so many players to highlight from that skirmish. First of all, Aki, this guy's a monster, stealing every objective. But then we saw that FPX almost brought it back. Xiaolahu, this is his first competitive game ever. Amazing ultimate, takes down numerous members of OMG. But in the end, Wooming showing up with that Zoe, cleaning up the fight for OMG. And now OMG are on soul point at 18 minutes.
And now OMG have the momentum in this game. We'll watch this again because every Weaver's Wall we've seen, Lyric, Tien has tried to zone off Aki, but he just walks into the pit.
Yep, the wall was not the play. Aki was already there. He gets the smite. Nice flash from LWX out of that Malphite ultimate. And then this play was so beautiful from Xiaolahu. Goes in, has the Zanya's multi-man ultimate. But sadly, the members of OMG aren't brought down. Doomby looks for the play. Wooming does pick up a flash, so he's able to get out scot-free. Doomby does find one on the back end, but still, 2 against 1 is going to end up going down in the end.
You saw the Spirit Cleave gives him a bit of a HP boost with the Immortal Shield Bow, but it wasn't enough to keep Doomby alive. At the end of the day, there's your damage chart. You talked about Xiaolahu a little bit, really brought that fight to its knees. At a point with his 5-man ulti, but at the end of the day, Wooming a big player now with his Luden's Echo and has now caught up to Doomby with a bounty on his head and with Seeker's Armor Guard. This Zoe is going to thrive in the next couple of fights.
And Wooming was one of the players we had some expectation for, right? We talked about Wooming and Eric. Wooming having some standout performances on the side of Rogue Warriors. Of course, on that team, he pretty much only played Zoe and Galio, in the past known as an assassin player, so you knew his mechanical skill was always there. And at least in this first game, stepping up big for OMG and potentially showing, hey, they can make it out of this group and hopefully do good things in 2021.
Because for OMG, redemption story, but I'll pause there because the flash headbutt pulverized onto Eric, who killer instincts over the wall, but Shallow, who his ult is designated for 1. But Arky doesn't care. Weaver's wall on the backside, I think, was thought about channeled. If I missed that one, I apologize. But FPX, they force out a lot of summoners of OMG. Try to manage a pick.
Yeah, and we just see how durable this Olaf is with that Gorge Drinker, the 400 health. Of course, has some mana regen as well. A lot of lifesteal built into the item. Looks like he's making his way towards the Starax gauge as well, which is only going to give him more healing, as well as the lifeline shield. So it's going to be really tough for the side of FPX to burst down the members of OMG, especially when they're sitting on one Mountain Drake, especially when they're making their way towards an Ocean Soul. Only a minute 30 till then, and both teams are going to have to group up. Both teams are going to have to fight for that one. And I feel like, once again, we're hoping Xiaolahu can find a nice flank. I feel like he got a bit, not lucky, but right, we saw OMG were running into FPX, so set him up for a good angle. But this time around, Xiaolahu will not have flash. He should not be able to make the same kind of play.
That's right, an important summoner to keep track of, ladies and gentlemen. And he doesn't have that stopwatch. It's actually broken at the moment too, so the ability to engage and hold for his team to re-engage or follow up is not going to be there. But we will have Doomby with an Infinity Edge. He was sitting on double Cloak of Agility and BF Sword for quite a while to maximize that crit chance. But now with the Infinity Edge, there's a lot of damage coming out of Doomby, who is level 13, who has been leading in farm against Wu Ming. So a big threat to be watching for in 45 seconds when the Ocean Soul spawns for OMG.
Yep, right now I would say he is the scariest man on the Rift. Ooh, though, Tien doing a nice job of contesting that title with only one item.
That's true. One item and a bit. Remember, Oblivion Orb a little bit cheaper, but still adds that
now gives grievous
down.
wounds.
Thank you so much. That's perfect.
No problem, my friend. No problem.
Yeah, hey, you're the expert, all right? I'm just here to make you look good, but you already make yourself look good. We've been casting together, but not live for a while, so we're really, feeling it at the moment. But 10 seconds of Ocean, I apologize. We've got a trouble bubble nailing down. OMG are trying to get the pick, and it makes a lot of sense. Good deep vision here, and this time, the Weaver's Wall is great. They want to stop the Ocean Soul. Aki's like, I'm not going in. Instead, Doomby's up in the air and just dies as he goes back. The soul was unbound, but they took the soul anyway.
It took 3 times, but Tien finally got it right. He Weaver walls Aki out. Then Doomby, it looks like, at the same time, is trying to disrupt them as well. Jumps in with the E, gets the knock up as well. Instantly bursted by the side of OMG, which when you have an Olaf, you have a Zoe, you have a Kaisa. Burst is also the name of the game for this team comp, and now this should be a free Baron for the side of OMG. Yeah,
because no Weaver's Wall to follow up. There is a flash, but Baron's getting low. Chris wants the headbutt pulverize, and he's sending Cold out. Instead of getting the Baron, they want the fight. LWX is setting up for the perfect Inferno trigger as Cold gets ignited and taken down, but Wu Ming's damage, that's massive, and that's huge. And OMG are going to be happy. They lost their support for the Baron buff in this game.
And especially when you look at the side of FPX, their wave clear, it's okay. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's also not on like the great spectrum. They have Talia, her full combo is going to do quite a decent job. Samir, not amazing at wave clearing, Kennen as well. So I feel like with this Baron, they should theoretically be able to get a lot done, especially when you look at FPX's top and bot outer turrets. Those are already about to fall, so at least they can get more gold in their pockets and pick up more items for that next Drake fight, because it still feels like the Ocean Drake fights are what this game is going to hinge on.
I really like that you started that with wave clear, though, because it's really important to note that FPX is a lot of melee wave clear, right? Samira, to get into that AoE cleave, has to go into melee range. Yone as well has to be committal with his Q. So let's see how it's dealt with the Baron buff now pushing down these lanes, and how we get towards that Ocean Soul in 3 minutes, because we're sitting on OMG strong core items. The Immortal Reminder picked up second here with the Gale Force instead of something like the Renan's Hurricane. So prioritizing the Samira, prioritizing the Yone, the double Immortal Shield Boat comp.
Yeah, and it makes sense when you have so much sustain coming out from these carries. I also like that LWX has the Collector. This is really when Samira hits that massive spike and can start getting in there. Again, the 10 hits from the ultimate, she's going to sustain a ton. Look for a lot of executes coming out from the Collector as well. Yep. We see that Shala, who has finally finished off his Zanya's, of course, before just only had the stopwatch. So it feels like FPX are hitting a lot of good item spikes for their side, and we haven't really seen them do too hot in these fights, and this next Dragon will be their chance.
Because for now, OMG are going to amount that gold and make it even harder for FPX to fight back. It's 25 minutes into the game. We're 2k gold lead for OMG. And OMG need to be praised because this has been a game where they've just taken the reins. In a turret on the top side, going to be the exact same. And Lyric, I'm waiting to see if FPX want to do anything about this or try and cut them off.
Yeah, New does have TP, so if FPX look for the engage, it is not a 4v5. New can very easily join the fight, and he does have his ultimate available. But going back to your saying, I do feel like OMG have been playing extremely well. Again, Wooming has been doing quite well. Yeah. I think the member I had the most question marks for was probably Aki, because, right, we've seen New be a starter, Cold was a starter, Eric was a full-time starter at the end. Wooming played a lot on Rogue Warriors. Aki is the only player on this team who we only got glimpses of and didn't really get a full picture painted, but he's done quite well, and we need to remember that he has learned in a good team, right? Was on Top Esports, so maybe having picked some things up from some of those players, whether it's Karsa, Jackie Love Knight, so on and so forth. But Aki, so far, a pleasant surprise. Wooming playing really well as well. And I'm excited to see what this OMG team can keep doing in this tournament.
Yeah, because it is a fresh start. A bit of context on Aki for players. When it was XX on the roster in 2019, Aki came in and played a couple of games when Chocho came in at the same time as well. So he had 2 to 3 games, if I remember correctly, on the LPL, but that's it. He hasn't had the major league of experience, but has been on Top Esports Challenger. Yay, they were wins, and he played one hell of a job. And also note that Top Esports Challenger, so within the foundation of the organization of Top Esports, which is a really important note. Aki getting the chance to show himself and hopefully continuing forward into LPL. He has a Sterix Gauge second, so there is a lot more healing on this Olaf. But will I have time to talk about it? Because New, with Ultimate and Flash available, is trying to be burnt out by FPX. But Lyric, do you see what I see? Are you ready? Because Wooming's coming in red hot, and LWX is already forced back with its Immortal Shield Bow shield. And Olaf just runs down Doomby. Aki's showing up bigger than expected. That's flashing away from the binding, but New comes in red hot. Shallow, who goes golden, a good seismic shove into the slicing Maelstrom. New gets burnt down pretty heavily with Ignite ticking down. He will die, but Eric doesn't care. He'll run forward, and FPX have just been blown apart.
Yeah, amazing ace coming out from OMG, only losing one member, and they are going to be able to pick up an inhibitor off this, most likely. Also should be able to get that Ocean Soul. Death timers are still too short for them to take the game, but 6k gold advantage, they should have Ocean Soul. Honestly, just feels like a matter of time.
Yeah, feels like you spike this one down, right? With the way Wooming's playing, with Eric's comfortability within this squad. Good to see, led by Aki, of course.
Doinby just kind of walking into 3 members. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I feel like I can understand what FPX were trying to do at first. It seems like they were trying to get Prio through bot, kind of conceding that they can't contest mid with OMG. It is a bit tough when you're facing a Malphite. I do think they might have extended a little bit, or like you said, tried to bait out that ultimate. Aki, though, we didn't actually see that.
Lyric, it was a bait.
Yeah, I don't think it was a bait, a bit of a whoopsie, but anyway, he goes in. We see Doinby, for some reason, still walking through that brush, even though the rest of his team is all down in the lane. Feels like he should have just backed off, but at this point, FPX were already in a bad position. It felt like trying to bait out that Malphite was a bit overzealous. We see the Malphite not really be able to hit anyone, but you already mentioned Eric easily able to run in. Amazing flash coming out from the Zoe. Olaf also able to pick one up on the back. And there we have it. Ocean Soul on this OMG lineup. I don't understand how you're going to kill members like the Malphite and the Olaf.
Yeah, very, very true. And even the Zoe, with her ability to stay on combat and weave through this FPX lineup, is going to be even more difficult, to say the least. Morale picked up here with Needlessly Large Rod. And at this point, with the game feeling like it's done, FPX need the miracle Cannon ulti. Otherwise, they will just lose out handily. But you know what? If New ults him and brings in the Kai'Sa, Eric can just clean this one up. Goes golden, and that Zhonya's Hourglass will delay the inevitable as Cold locks on down to Tien. And this will be his death as well. It's a double kill over to Wooming. 8-0 and 4 now is the Zoe. And OMG only need the Baron to run towards the base.
And I just love that play coming out from Colt. He actually flashed forward to guarantee that binding to pick up that last kill. So a lot of aggressive options coming out from OMG. And when you're coming into the LPL, how much action you can create, how aggressive you are, feels like one of the bars of entry to kind of being an acceptable team, right? A lot of our slower teams don't really work out. These teams that we can say they're a bit more indecisive or they're a bit more patient. They prefer to pick safer scaling champions. So nice to see OMG come in and have this kind of hunger in them to look for these plays.
Just remember, it was only a team like BLG or, some versions of EDG in the past that could pull something like that off. And the more controlled teams that didn't want to play within the environment, within the realm of the LPL. So it's good to see OMG taking the more formidable approach, and at least in this game, giving us unhinged expectations. We thought this roster could have potential, but not look this good. It's a great start. As Tien's Weaver's Ball says it's not over just yet, but with Ocean Soul, Olaf will not die. Gordricker means he's going to heal this one up, and Undertow may not connect thanks to Zhonya's, but Tien's just dead anyway, because Wooming says so. Top side, and Niven's going to drop down, and you know what? Let's run it into base more.
Yeah, the gold lead is just too massive at this point in the game. There really isn't too much FPX can do themselves. They're really relying on OMG to make mistakes themselves. But even now, that feels like it's too late.
It really does. Engage from Duombi and OMG are running towards the Nexus Turrets. First game of Demacia Cup was kind of open and closed by that third, fourth team fight. And FPX running 4 out of their 5 world starting roster have just been obliterated. Inferno Trigger's huge. As you saw, a Samira who was behind almost brought that back. But it's OMG who hold the cards in our first game of Demacia Cup 2020.
A lot of good things to see out of OMG. It does feel like, even though I said, hey, OMG were bloodthirsty, they were hungry, it did hinge a lot on FPX being the ones to look for these plays, which we know is very FPX-like. Just obviously a lot of issues, whether it was mistiming, miscoordination, or even like slight ideas of where small pockets of vision that they can't play around and getting abused by OMG. But still, great first win for a roster that honestly I don't think a lot of us had much expectation for. Taking down FPX, who sure they might have lost to IG in the V5 in playoffs and regionals. That's still, I mean, you lost the best of one, not too big of a deal. There were some highlights, especially early on. Those 3-man dives top were quite beautiful. Duinbi had a really nice early game. So Xiaolahu, a lot of potential. I feel like there's still some things to look forward to with this FPX roster.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Xiaolahu especially, remember, this was his first ever competitive game. And there's like 3 to 4 people in the tournament that we can say that about. And the fact that one of them's on the FPX squad where 4 people have won Worlds in 2019 is quite impressive. So this is a great experience for him.